Welcome back to Birds of a Feather. This is your daily Baltimore sports podcast. My name is Nathan Stroud, and today we're going to be going over something a little bit different today. It's going to be a little bit different of an episode today. We're not necessarily going to go over, like the Ravens or the Orioles, like something that they did, but we are going to go over something that is directly tied to the Ravens, and that is the result of yesterday's Thursday Night Football game between the Bengals and the Steelers. Now, obviously, the Bengals and the Steelers are both above the Ravens in this game. So I guess you could say either way was like a win and lose situation. But the Steelers going into the game yesterday were sitting at 4-1. And if the Steelers won yesterday, they would have been 5-1 and been far ahead of the Ravens in the division. And it would have been harder for the Ravens to crawl back and win the division or attempt to win the division. But Joe Flacco, the Cincinnati Bengals, led by Joe Flacco, the Baltimore legend himself, the Super Bowl MVP, a Baltimore legend, once again does his thing and helps out the Ravens without even really trying to help out the Ravens, but he indirectly helps out the Ravens here. The Steelers lose yesterday to the Bengals in a game where they were heavily favored. And now the Steelers are sitting at 4-2. They are still leading the division, but this is a huge game for the Ravens because obviously based on expectation, based on, Vegas odds, based on, betting and stuff like that, and just based on just logic in terms of when you look at schedules. The Ravens getting Lamar Jackson back, there was the report today that the Ravens are expected to get Lamar Jackson back in Week 8, so that is great news, alongside Chidobe Awuzie, alongside Roquan Smith, so lots of help coming for the Baltimore Ravens here in Week 8 coming out of the bye week. Obviously, we are currently in the bye week right now. Today is technically like Saturday morning that we're recording this episode. So in the next couple of days, we are going to have football going on in Week 7. There's going to be no Ravens games. But in terms of a game to watch that impacts the Ravens indirectly, it would be this Bengals and Steelers game on Thursday Night Football, and the Bengals went out there and beat the Steelers, and now, we're sitting 3 games back to the Steelers, which is obviously still a lot, but anytime the Steelers lose is a good thing because they, in my opinion, they are the only real threat in terms of the division. Going into the year, I wouldn't really have said any teams are a threat. Maybe the Bengals with Joe Burrow, obviously healthy, but as it sits right now in Week 7, the Pittsburgh Steelers are leading the division, so obviously for a team that's trying to get back in the division, for a team that's trying to crawl their way back, with a very easy schedule like the Ravens do have, and with them getting their franchise quarterback back, with them getting all these people back, the Ravens are very well set up for a huge post-bye second half comeback into the season. We've talked about how the next 6 games are really going to make an impact on really how the rest of the season is going to go. And with the Steelers losing yesterday, it is a huge loss for the Steelers and a huge win for the Ravens because it just makes that comeback just a little bit easier, and any sort of help that we can get is good help. Obviously, the team that did beat the Steelers is a team that is in our division and a team that is above the Ravens, but it's a team that I do not worry about. I trust the Steelers more than I trust the Bengals. Obviously, with the Bengals, it's a very shaky quarterback situation, and their defense is also very shaky. With the Steelers, obviously, they have the better record. The Steelers and Mike Tomlin has kind of had Lamar's number over the years, so that's the team that I'm kind of worried about in terms of the division, in terms of the Ravens coming back in the division. But the basis of this episode, which we're going to go over in just one second, and the basis of the episode and what I want everybody to take away from this episode is that the season is far from over. The season is far from over from the Ravens, and the Pittsburgh losing yesterday and the way that they did really instills a lot of confidence into me and how this rest of the season is going to go. Kind of got me fired up with the fact that, Pittsburgh loses a game that they were favored. They have a lot of hard games coming up as well. The Ravens have a lot of easy games coming up as well. So again, we're set up for a big comeback into the season. And this loss, a divisional loss for the Steelers, mind you, is huge for the Ravens moving forward, and it kind of impacts how the rest of the season is really going to go. So taking a quick peek here at the current NFL standings across the league, obviously we got people doing their thing. The Patriots are leading the AFC East. The Steelers are leading the AFC North. The Colts are leading the AFC South. The Chargers are leading the AFC West. The Eagles are leading the NFC East. The Packers are leading the NFC North. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are leading the NFC South. Something about Tampa, obviously this is a little off topic, but Baker Mayfield is my current MVP right now this year. Comment down below who y'all's MVP so far into the season is. Mine is Baker Mayfield. And then the San Francisco 49ers are leading the NFC West in a three-way tie between the Niners, Seahawks, and Rams. So that division's interesting. But going over to the AFC North here, obviously it's a little lopsided, not as lopsided as the AFC East, where the Patriots and the Bills are 4-2, and the Dolphins and Jets are 1-5 and 0-6. But the AFC North is pretty lopsided as well. The Steelers are currently sitting at 4-2. The Bengals are sitting at 3-4, and then you have the Ravens and the Browns both sitting at 1-5. Obviously, the Ravens have the tiebreaker over the Browns because they beat them in Week 2, so you have the tiebreaker over them there. But when you go to division records, because divisional records are very, very important in terms of the final standings, in terms of tiebreakers and stuff like that. The Steelers are 1-1 in the division. The Bengals are 2-0. The Ravens are 1-0, and the Browns are 0-3. Again, we are not worried about the Cleveland Browns winning the division. That is not going to happen. You can kind of just put a big X over the Cleveland Browns. This division in the AFC North is either going to be the Steelers, Bengals, or Ravens. And to be honest with you, again, I just don't trust Cincinnati. I thought their win over Pittsburgh was miraculous. I thought it was great, but I did not think that it was something that they could keep up moving forward into the future. I love Joe Flacco. I love him to death. We're actually going to go over his stats in just 1 second because of how well he played in this game. But that Cincinnati Bengals defense is extremely, extremely bad. And obviously, an offense led by Joe Flacco, you just can't really rely on a week-to-week basis. So, and again, the Ravens and Lamar Jackson has had the Bengals number heavily over the years, and we still played the Bengals twice this season and twice in the next 6 games, including on Thanksgiving night. So that should be a lot of fun. Obviously, Bengals-Ravens games are usually great, but there probably will be no Joe Burrow in either one of the Ravens-Bengals games. Joe Burrow, I think they said that he's not expected to come back until like mid-December. That's like his target date, which is still like 2 months away. And by that time, who knows what the Bengals are going to be. Maybe there'll be a good feel-good story with Joe Flacco, which would be cool, but I'm just kind of trying to go with realistic here. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are the team, in my opinion, that is the biggest obstacle in the way of the Ravens. Not only with the record being 4-2 and the Ravens record being 1-5, but also the fact that Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers has kind of had the Ravens number over the years, and especially Lamar Jackson's number. Obviously, the Ravens this past year beat them in the regular season in 1 out of 2 games, and the Ravens did beat the Steelers in the wild card round to send their ass home. So, obviously last year we beat them in 2 out of 3 games, but just over the years, the Steelers, and this is the type of team that they are, they've given Lamar Jackson some trouble, and they've given the Ravens some trouble in terms of the blitzing and the pressures and stuff like that. Kind of very similar when you look back at the Kansas City game, where Kansas City just blitzes all the time, and Kansas City and Pittsburgh has really taken a toll in terms of the Ravens' offense and Lamar Jackson's capability to do what he needs to do. Obviously, in the playoff game, it was slice and dice, and Lamar was doing his thing. And the Steelers' defense this year looks a hell of a lot worse than it has over the previous years. The talent is still there. It has to be the scheme. Again, very similar to what's going on in Baltimore. The names are there, but the scheme and the production is not happening. Very similar to what's happening in Pittsburgh right now. Pittsburgh has let up 140 points this season, which isn't like a crazy amount. But I mean, if you go to yesterday's game with the Steelers and the Bengals, I think it was 33-31. So again, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is letting up 33 points to Joe Flacco. Again, the Bengals offense has a lot of good weapons. They have Jamar Chase, who, in my opinion, is the best receiver in the NFL. You have T. Higgins. You got Chase Brown. Like you've got some really good names there on the Bengals offense, but their offensive line's a little bit problematic, and it's a little alarming that the Steelers defense of all defenses gives up that many points to that team. That's, again, why I'm even more confident in the fact that the Ravens can come back into this year, just because the way that the Steelers are playing is not very consistent. It's not very great. They're sitting at 4-2. They have a good record, but it's not a 4-2 that you're like truly, deeply confident in, if you know what I mean. So when it comes to the Ravens rest of their season. Obviously, over the next 6 games, we play the Bears in the first game back, which is going to be a little bit tough. The Bears do scare me a little bit. Ben Johnson's getting those guys right in Chicago, and if the Bears beat the Saints this week, which they probably will, I probably will definitely be tuning into that Bears game this week, just because, again, it's the Ravens bye. I'm going to tune into the team that we're playing the next week. I'm going to watch this Bears game on Sunday. I do really want to see how they play. Doing a little bit of scouting before the game, kind of, what we need to look out for. Obviously, Roma Dunze's having a really good year. DJ Moore is a great player. DeAndre Swift's doing good. Caleb Williams is having a resurgence. And that Bears defense is also showing some signs of life as well. But with the Ravens, again, that Bears game is definitely going to be the hardest game. And if we just go here and look at the Ravens schedule for the remainder of the year, but again, we are just really focusing on these next 6 games. You have Chicago, which if you beat Chicago, because this is the game that I'm most worried about, if you can beat Chicago, these next 5 games should be light work. Then you've got Miami, Minnesota, Cleveland, the Jets, and the Bengals. All of those games should be light work. And then you've got Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. Then you've got Cincinnati, obviously what I just said. And then you have Pittsburgh and Cincinnati again. New England and Green Bay, these are by far the 2 hardest games remaining on the schedule. But that comes in Week 16 and Week 17. And we'll know a lot more about the Ravens' capabilities heading into the rest of the season by that time. So Weeks 8 through Weeks 15 are going to be extremely important. A lot of these games are easy. Again, I know the Ravens are sitting at 1-5. I know it. I know it's crazy. But there's been a lot of injuries to this defense that's affected these scores. The scheme obviously has been bad. We still have the same defensive coordinator, but the way that an injured Ravens defense last week, a little bit healthier than they were in Houston, but still an injured Ravens defense last week, the way that they played against a very high-powered Rams offense, the way that they played in that game, even though they lost. You lost 17-3. The 17 points that the defense gave up, I'm not really all going to fully blame it on them because the offense did put them in bad situations. But the fight that the defense showed in that game against the Rams really does give me a lot of confidence in this defense's mindset moving forward. We heard Zach Gore in an interview this past week say that this was the first time that he really saw this defense play with a lot of heart. And I'm just praying on my knees that same type of mentality can carry over into the future with this defense. Because, again, if we can figure out the scheme, if we can play with a little bit more heart, and obviously we're going to have all these star players back, guys like Kyle Hamilton who came back last week, Roquan Smith, Marlon Humphrey, hopefully getting Jair Alexander more involved and, him playing well, and all these incredible players. Again, fixing the scheme is the biggest thing with this defense. We understand that. But if the scheme still isn't that good, at least go out there and play with heart. Again, you have so many extremely talented players on this defense. A big missing piece on this defense, obviously, right now, is Nnamdi Madubuike. We understand that. We understand Madubuike's out. We're going to do this season for him. We understand how important he is to this defense. But it's one name. It's a next man up mentality. You still have so many incredible players on this defense. And again, having Madubuike out there is not an excuse for the defense to completely fall apart. There's still so many talented names on this defense that can make plays. And the way that they played against the Rams really did give me hope that moving forward throughout this season that they can play with that same type of physical mentality, and a lot of things will be cleaned up on the defensive end. Because if things are cleaned up on the defensive end, and you get Lamar Jackson back on this team healthy with the weapons around him like Derrick Henry, who looked great last week against the Rams. Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. And hopefully we might start rotating the offensive line here with, Emory Jones. Ronnie Stanley's obviously been dealing with an ankle injury all year. He's been in and out of games, so hopefully he can, over this bye week, again, this is why this bye week is so important. Get healthy, get ready to go for the rest of the year. Ronnie Stanley's an extremely big part of this team. Roger Rosengarten, Tyler Linderbaum hopefully can clean up some of the mistakes that he's made because he's not playing great. Nobody really on the offensive line is playing great. And guys like Rosengarten, Ronnie Stanley, and Tyler Linderbaum are supposed to be pretty good players, obviously, as we know, but they haven't really necessarily been playing up to the standard which we would expect. So hopefully, again, this bye week, getting the scheme right on defense and fixing whatever's going on with the offensive line and getting that offensive line more consistent for Lamar Jackson. Because again, getting Lamar Jackson back completely changes what this team is and the expectations of this team. The past 2 weeks with Cooper Rush in at quarterback, looking back on it now, there was no way we were winning those games. And I do think that it was possible to beat LA if we started Tyler Huntley, but still, who knows what would have happened. So again, 1-3 with Lamar Jackson on the season. You lose to Buffalo in a heartbreaking game that you still should have won now. You beat Cleveland. You lose to Detroit in a shootout game where the defense completely sells you. And then you lose to Kansas City. Lamar Jackson gets hurt in the third quarter. And again, the defense was atrocious from the start, and Lamar Jackson was really having trouble with the blitzes. So 3 losses on 3 ugly games. The 2 ugliest games were the ugliest game of the season with Lamar Jackson, and was definitely Kansas City, but he didn't even play the entire game. And the Detroit game was pretty ugly as well, but still the offense put up 30 points, but the defense was a disaster. And the defense was also a disaster in that Buffalo game as well. So again, there's been a lot of games where you could have easily won. You could have won that Detroit game, you could have won that Buffalo game, and obviously you won the Cleveland game. So this record could be looking a lot different if you just cleaned up a little bit of mistakes on the Buffalo game and the Detroit game. So things could be looking a lot different. It's a very 2024 Bengals type vibe where the offense does really good and the defense doesn't do good. But against Houston and against LA, and obviously pretty much the whole second half of that Kansas City game where you didn't have Lamar, I mean, it was kind of cooked from the start. We understood that. So it's not necessarily surprising based on what we've seen on the football field why this team is 1-5. Again, if you're a fan of football and you're tuning in and you obviously have the assumption that the Ravens are really good, you're going to be really surprised that they're 1-5. But again, when you look at the schedule, it is a night and day difference. The 2 hardest games on this schedule remaining are in Week 16 and Week 17. There's still a lot of time until those games and a lot of things that can be cleaned up on this team that can be fixed over the bye week, and things could be looking very good. And this team has a very, very good opportunity. I'm not just saying that just to cope. I'm not just saying that just to hype this team up. This team legitimately has a chance to have an extremely big second half comeback. They have the ability to win 6 in a row going into the December game against Pittsburgh. They can be 7-5 heading into that Pittsburgh game. Hopefully Pittsburgh can have a similar record to us, and then obviously it's a dogfight for the last 5 games of the year, and we'll see what happens from there. Again, we still play Pittsburgh twice. We still play Cincinnati twice. This season is far from over, and I just want to let you know, again, this season is far from over. Before Lamar Jackson got hurt, he was playing like an MVP candidate. We knew that. We understand how important he is to this team. He's coming back next week. Again, this week's episodes and stuff like that, there's not been episodes every single day this week because, again, it is a bye. And there's not really any sort of Orioles news coming out. There's been some stuff about the managers that we've talked about. But again, it is the bye week. We're kind of taking it slow a little bit. Obviously, right when this week ends and we head into Monday of next week, it's officially game week, and you go from there. So hopefully everyone's getting good over the bye. Everyone's getting healthy. People are figuring out the game plan, especially with this offensive line and with the defense, and also with the goal line situation. Todd Monken really needs to figure out just to keep it simple on the goal line. And anytime we're in a goal-to-go situation with this team, with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, should be an automatic touchdown every single time, just like it was last season. But before we end this episode, before we do our outro, I do want to just highlight the man himself, Joe Flacco. Ravens legend. Ravens fans will always remember him for what he did for the Ravens for so many years. Joe Flacco, a Ravens legend, a Baltimore legend. The people in Baltimore will forever love him. The Super Bowl MVP. You pretty much won that Super Bowl behind this offense and his arm. He was incredible. Him and Lamar Jackson are the 2 greatest quarterbacks in Ravens history. Obviously, there's not a lot to choose from because pretty much a majority of the Ravens franchise has been Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson over the past, 2 quarterbacks of this team. But I just want to give a shout out to Joe Flacco. There was a moment in yesterday's game where he was having a press conference where he was kind of saying, like, I never thought I'd have a moment like this again, and he was referring to like a game-winning drive to win a game. And just the hype at home, the crowd, everyone loving him, the Flacco chants, stuff like that. He said that he thought that he would never have a moment like that again. And I thought it was just really cool because, again, Joe Flacco, one of the greatest players in Baltimore Ravens history. We understand that. Obviously, near the end years in Baltimore wasn't great. It was kind of mid. But we still have to recognize what he did for this team. And it's just cool to see him going out there and balling and doing his thing. And again, him doing it against Pittsburgh and really helping the Ravens right now for them to try and propel themselves to a comeback. This really did help out a lot. Just wanted to give a shout out to Joe Flacco. He's 40 years old, 31 for 47, 342 passing yards, and 3 touchdowns. No turnovers for Joe Flacco. He was elite, as some would say. So shout out to Joe Flacco. He did his thing. Love him. Love Joe Flacco to death. We will forever love you, Joe. And we're probably going to see Joe Flacco, what? We're going to see him 2 more times this season because we're going to play the Bengals, obviously, on Thanksgiving night. So it's unless Joe Flacco's hurt, unless they bring in a new quarterback or something like that, as it stands right now, because they're not going to have Joe Burrow back by then unless he makes a miraculous recovery. As it stands right now, it is going to be Joe Flacco versus Lamar Jackson on primetime Thanksgiving night, which is going to be cinema. I'm not going to lie, that's going to be a cinema game. Again, we love Joe Flacco. And yeah, we're going to see him again this year. We already saw him when we played the Browns in our only win of the year, where he did have a little bit of a trouble there. That was definitely, I don't want to say that's the best our defense played. I mean, technically it is because, I mean, it was the Browns, but again, happy for Joe. Happy he's getting to play with some really good receivers and rooting for him, but not rooting for him too much. I'm rooting for him against Pittsburgh, but that's about it. But again, thank you guys so much for tuning into and listening to this episode of Birds of a Feather. I know this episode is a little bit different today. Obviously, we're kind of going over the Steelers and the Bengals game and just the impact that made for the Ravens because it was a very big help for the Ravens. And again, the second half comeback and all that. Again, I appreciate all the support you guys have given me. Make sure to click the link in the bio to check out the Twitter and the Instagram. Make sure to give those a follow. I post all the time on Twitter, quote tweet a bunch of stuff, live tweet during games, live tweet all the news that happens as well, so make sure to give that a follow. Also make sure to check out the Instagram as well. Also make sure, obviously, if you're on YouTube or Spotify, you already know which platform you're listening on, so make sure to keep listening. I appreciate all the support. Thank you guys so much for being here and listening to the show. It means the absolute world to me, man. You guys have no idea how much I love this show. Love talking about it, and I cannot wait for it to just get bigger and bigger over time. Again, Rome wasn't built in a day. Again, it's over time. Things are going to happen behind the scenes and stuff like that, and everything's going to be good to go. But I promise I'm going to put as much effort as I can into the show. Again, we're 181 episodes in. We've been doing this pretty much consistently every single day. So, again, it's a gradual process. But, again, I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in and listening. I'll have an episode up sometime, probably one more episode during the bye week. Actually, I'll probably have an episode up on Monday as we officially enter game week. So I'm not going to have an episode up tomorrow or on Sunday because unless there's news come out. If there's any sort of news comes out, we'll obviously record an episode, but as of right now, in terms of scheduling, we'll have an episode up back on Monday. So I'll see you guys in the next one. You have a great Steelers day. Go O's, go Ravens, and I'll see y'all later. Peace out.